So Wayne gave this talk actually not at DEF CON, but at both B-Sides, and he gave this talk in one of the villages. Which village?
DEF CON Wall of Sheep.
In the Wall of Sheep village, which is pretty cool. So I'm excited to see this, because even though I watched, what did I say, 38 talks, it's time for 39 and 40 tonight. Let's give Wayne a big hand.
How you guys doing? Good. Get this started. Okay, I have 290 slides that we're going to rotate through. And if you've seen my talk, you know how I like to do it. Fishing to Phishing, Adventures in Chasing Slimy Creatures, or the TMI of Wayne Crowder. Legal disclaimer, entertainment, education, don't break anything. Hacking Wi-Fi is breaking the law. Okay? Who is this joker? Wayne Crowder. If you don't know me, come see me afterwards. TMI to follow. All right. I grew up in the great state of Alaska. So when you think of Alaska, you probably think of outdoors and fishing. That makes sense. You also probably think about this. It's super cold. So when it's really cold and you can't be outdoors and doing the things you love like fishing, you're probably spending your time watching this guy, right? I watched a lot of Bill dance. I watched him do some crazy things. He taught me a lot about how to catch fish that I'd never even imagined that I would see. Because in Alaska, they don't have the kind of fish that Bill Dance was fishing for. You know, you wouldn't really hook your nose back home with this kind of lure. So, some of you may have experienced fishing with this, right? How many here have played this wonderful game? Yeah? I didn't know that the Globetrotters actually fished. So there they are, boom, slam dunk, right? Some of you know about fishing because of this. Sega bass fishing, right? But a lot of you probably spent your time on the water with grandpa or another loved one, and you had just this awesome time. I know I had a lot of memories. It's also a great way to impress the ladies, right? Caught you a delicious bass. You know, it is a great way to have a first date. It worked for me and my wife, right? No, there is no help for this woman. So at DEF CON, they were doing stuff like this. They were fishing from their hotel rooms, but there are those who in the fishing industry that can't go fishing. Okay? No, let me get back to the basics here. Major League Fishing, big time money to catch fish like this, okay? $100,000, $500,000, $1 million payouts, boats like this, equipment like this. This is serious stuff. It's basically the NASCAR of water, right? Some of them even drive them sideways. Okay. All these big, beautiful checks. They fill stadiums like this and like this, just to watch people weigh fish, and for the guy to get his trophy, right? That's why he's there. Now, the TMI of Wayne Crowder. This was me on a billboard many years ago. I had a campaign with an auto dealership. It's a wrap truck, I had a boat. This is me hugging my evil twin. This is my wrap. This was me holding the same fish, right? Trying to live that dream, catching any kind of fish, whether it's trout. Sometimes I caught weird creatures. I had the wonderful opportunity to go to the Amazon, and I got my trophy, okay? But more importantly, I got to kiss fish, right? But then something happened. Seriously, something happened. This may have happened to some of you last week, okay? Windows 10 setup. Something happened in my life, and this is what happened. My oldest son, who's actually named Fisher because of how much fishing I did, he was diagnosed with autism. And the only experience I'd had with something like that was, there was one time that I had taken a kid out on a charity event. It's called Catch a Special Thrill. And I'd taken the family out, and it was the first time they'd been on the water because of the needs of their son. And so I had to change my priorities, okay? I had to kind of think about what was going on in my life, because I had been working jobs like this, and been kind of this multi-hat wearing guy, and always loved security, but I needed to kind of get a little more job security because I couldn't fall back on the moonlighting as a professional fisherman. And a lot of my friends had told me, hey, you got to become a security analyst. You're really good at what you do, go out and do this. So it brought me to Kansas City. Full-time gig as a security analyst. I loved it. And as I'm working, I find out that, this is interesting. Because I found out, I found out that pro fishing has a lot of similarities to InfoSec. Okay, you all with me? You might be saying, are you serious? Yes, I am serious, because any monkey or ape or orangutan can fish, right? But what does it take? So let me explain where I'm going with this. Can anyone tell me who this is? Anyone? It's crickets. This is Moxie marlinspike, and he's spearfishing. This is Moxie cleaning a fish. I censored it for those who might find that offensive. This is a lure named Moxie. Okay? No one knows Moxie marlinspike, one of the well-known hackers of the DEF CON era. I thought that was interesting, but once again, I'm off the rails. So let me get back to the similarities of how InfoSec analysts and fishermen are different, but the same in many ways. First off, training. Okay? How many here have been to a SANS training this year alone? Hands? None? Yeah. This is me in a SANS class, right? 6 weeks ago, actually. Bass fishermen have training. The Bass University. Very similar to SANS. Travels around the country, they have major events, their pros teach, hey, this is what you need to do, these are the things you have to do, okay? So, after your training, it's time to get your serious analysis skills and start to do your research, okay? So, a lot of times as analysts, we have to look at maps. Here's a great map depicting what we need to worry about for this area, Telnet, HTTP, different things like that. As fishermen, we have to do research for maps, like this, where we're like, okay, well, is it over here? Can I check over here? Things like that. But I want to explain that research is something that a lot of times is hard to teach, okay? Doing research is the success of an analyst, both as a professional fisherman or as a security analyst. So nothing compares to time on the water. That was a term that was used as fishermen. You could do all the map research you wanted, and it's a great skill. But nothing beats that time on the water, right? Nothing beats that experience that you'd have. So, obligatory Star Wars slide, research, Darth Vader's researching his clones. Now, InfoSec pros spend a lot of time looking at charts like this, but they need some context or situational environment. They need to understand, okay, well, what is this? So they're gonna click on a bubble, zoom in maybe. Fishermen are gonna look at maps like this, and here we at least know that this might be fall and winter. So where would you find fall and winter fish? Here's another screenshot of some analysis. From the back, it just looks like a bunch of white lines probably up front. This is actually a SIF printout. It shows you a lot of data, but you need a little more context. For the fly fishermen in the room, this is a river, and there's 12 points that you can look at of where you might be able to find fish. Okay, a lot to analyze. So, another key area that professional fishermen and security analysts have is the big picture. And this is supposedly an unphotoshopped goldfish that this guy caught in Europe. Big fan. But what's the big picture? Well, the big picture depends on the perspective, possibly. They may have something like this. For the InfoSec people in the room, what's the big picture here? Yeah, don't you miss that guy? I love it. Somebody called it out. The big picture here is you probably want to throw this computer away because it's got every kind of browser toolbar in the world you want to get rid of, right? But really, the big picture for InfoSec analysts is to catch all the bad guys. Okay? You want to catch everything. For fishermen, you want to catch everything as well. You want to catch all the fish. So that's your big picture. There's another comparison. What's this one? What could this one be? Shiny things, right? In InfoSec, we get caught up in a lot of shiny things. I think Bill gave a talk the first time I ever met him, and it was all about avoiding the shiny things. So here's one of those shiny things that sometimes we may spend money on. For fishermen, we have a lot of shiny things as well. Something like this, or look at this beautiful shiny thing. It looks just like the fish right next to it, right? Shut up and take my money. I want that shiny server, I want that shiny lure. It's no coincidence, there's a company that was called Fishnet, thank you, in the back, right? So, I thought that'd go over a lot better here, especially in Kansas City. Points. Security analysts and fishermen love points. Okay, some of you might be salivating right now just looking at this beautiful list of points, right? A lot of fishermen pay money for charts that tell them that, hey, this point probably is a good place to look for fish. Another fun thing that InfoSec professionals and fishermen have are t-shirts. So I thought that was funny, and of course if you've been to any of the cons, you know that t-shirts, people will do anything for t-shirts. For fishermen, it's just about the same thing. One day they'll name a lure after me, and you have whole stores dedicated to fishing shirts. You even have your hack naked or fish naked shirts, quite a comparison. Okay, patterns. Patterns are a big thing in both fishing and InfoSec. Anyone know what pattern this is, actually? It's a biblical fish pattern. I thought that was appropriate for this. When you're fishing along the bank, you can see a point there on the left. There'll be some structure, maybe some grass on the right, maybe it'll be a little bit deeper. But the fish will usually tell you, much like the bad guys, what the pattern is, what's going on, okay? So let's say it's the vegetation, right? Well, here is a pattern. Anyone in the front row tell me what the pattern is for this log file? How about this? WordPress vulnerability, right? We're looking at things, we're seeing the pattern, scrolling through WP/WP, okay? Stickers. Stickers are something that are important to both fishermen and InfoSec professionals. Some of you may have a laptop that looks like this. Some of you may have a vehicle that looks like this if you're fishermen, okay? This is, I believe this is up in Alaska. This is a gentleman who was very passionate about his trout and salmon fishing. Some of the boats are even completely covered by stickers, or vinyl wrap. Who here can tell me what this is? An HTC Desire. Now, when I spend the time to put together a slide deck like this and I use a lot of visuals, I really screw up my Google profile. And when you start searching for Desire and trying to figure out how to mix that with fishing and InfoSec, you end up with stuff like this. This is messed up, man. Seriously, these came from my searches. Yeah, you gotta have a lot of desire, right, to make it through. I even found a Rule 34 for fishing. I'm gonna leave it there while I talk about desire. So, in fishing, you have to have a desire to put up with the travel, the weather, the environment, the crazy days. Things not working out. And in InfoSec, it's pretty much the same thing. You really have to have a desire, because it's pretty easy to be a programmer and get to go home at 5 o'clock every day. Or not to have to deal with an outbreak of the latest malware. You gotta have the desire, the burning desire to want to stop this, to prevent it, to clean it up, and deal sometimes with the travel. And maybe you just really enjoy it. But desire, I thought, was a key thing, and now that this is burned in your brains, good luck washing that out. So, organization, that's a big thing that I've seen, and I've been very impressed with a lot of the stuff I'll see at some of the cons, especially Black Hat. You'll see some cool stuff. Looks beautiful. It's very well organized, zip tied. For fishermen, a lot of the same things. They like to have their bags and their equipment very much organized. A lot of default stuff. Some of you may even had a bag like this at DEF CON if you went, or in years past, where you got just about everything to do what you need to a badge at DEF CON, right? A friend of mine I stayed with in Vegas, his garage looked like this, so I thought that was appropriate. All his lures organized and labeled. Some of you may have your code here. You like to organize it, share it out with others. Another fun thing I found out about was I've run into several analysts who like to have lots of tabs open. And I thought it was fun to show the appropriate names of how many tabs, 110 tabs open. And, that might be organized to that person. To me, it's organized because I have it. But also in fishing, you'll have gentlemen who will have their complete deck full of rods like this. This is very common. Much like you're going to have somebody who has a ton of tabs open, they're going to have a lot of rods. And I've had people get on my boat and say, what in the world are you going to do with all of those? Well, there's a purpose for each one, right? Methodical. You have to be very methodical as a security analyst and also as a fisherman. You have to be patient. There's a lot of times when things don't work out. There's people in this room who've probably been on a pen test and it's gone 2, 3, 4 days on a 5-day engagement, and maybe you don't really have something good and you're worried about having to write a report with only a couple paragraphs. So patience is key sometimes until you can break out. Sometimes you need to be able to adapt. And adaptability is key in both the fishing world and also as a security professional. You need to be curious. You need to have the curiosity of the squirrel trying to figure out what's going on. I love this slide. I put it in because first off I was curious as to what in the world was in the cooler there below the gentleman that looked like a float, a bobber. But more importantly, it's the kid and the look on his face like, what are we doing here? He just has this look like, I don't understand. But curiosity as a fisherman, when you drive by a lake and you really have the passion for it, you'll look at a pond like this and you'll say, I wonder what fish live in there. And I'd like to catch whatever's in there. You're very curious, you want to know. And so you have to be data curious as well as an analyst. You have to look at things like this and say, okay, well, what's going on with these unique computers communicating out? I need to know what's going on. Or you may get a screenshot like this that says, malware is ahead. And some of you may just shut this off and close your browser, but there's some in this room who will say, I want to know why this popped up, right? You're data curious. Another example of data curious is maybe some DNS points. The characters in your URL may be between this high point, and you'll see there, that's where it is. I did find it interesting that as I'm doing this research, up popped squirrel fishing. There's actually a thing on squirrel fishing, and I thought I'd share that with you all because you should research it. One thing that InfoSec professionals do is drink a lot, as some of you can tell by the earlier presentation. But in fishing, we get sponsored by companies like Yeti to keep your brew cool, okay? So here's the challenge. Let's see if we can get a cooler sponsor. Challenge accepted, right? Where's Bill and those guys? Mistakes. This isn't awesome. Actually, if you can find this video, it's pretty crazy. Shark just starts attacking this thing. InfoSec professionals and fishermen have to learn from their mistakes. And clearly this fish did not learn from its mistake. But the issue, like with the Sony hack, there were so many mistakes, both by Sony and by the media and by companies like this that decided to say, hey, it's somebody named Lana, used to work there. You know, they had to learn from their mistake. I have a friend, his name's Brandon, he became a pro a few years back. He made a major mistake last year. And he culled some fish, meaning he removed a fish and replaced it with a bigger one in an area he wasn't supposed to. He lost the tournament. He was actually leading the event. But he learned from that mistake actually in the next event and won it wire by wire and beat everybody. This was a cameraman who was too close to a gentleman fishing while he was trying to film him fishing, and he got a pretty painful mistake even though he looks pretty happy there. He's got 2 treble hooks in this. Some called this a mistake. This is me a few years back, getting a mohawk. I don't really call it a mistake. I mean, when are you going to get a mohawk and get away with it, right? I decided to turn it into an opportunity and put the puzzle piece on the back, put my son's name on the side, and to me it wasn't a mistake. It was kind of a full circle moment. You may be saying, cool story, bro. What kind of board? What does this have to do with everything? And you need a Fisher cut bait. You know, you need to get on with it, but I'm getting there, I promise. So that takes me to DEF CON 22, and that's last year. Hours before flying out, this is what happens to me. And I do have some witnesses that can attest to that. I think Brian's in the room. That poor man had to put my socks on while I was at DEF CON last year. I blew my back out, and I took a lot of these, and maybe a few of these. And so DEF CON was a lot of fun for me. But it also gave me the idea for a talk for SecKC's talk later in the year. And this is where I plug, in my talks I plugged SecKC, both at B-Sides and at DEF CON. And the idea here is you need to have a local club. And this is what I told the crowd. And just like local bass fishing clubs, it's something similar. I meet with some guys once or twice a month, depending on what we do, and we go over grassroots stuff about fishing, and we teach each other things, and we go do tournaments amongst ourselves. So much like local bass fishing clubs, we have our local security club. And we had a challenge called Trixie, and for Trixie, the idea was to submit a live demo of some kind of hacking, and that's what I did. And we all did it for the Chromebook, right? We all did it for the Chromebook. So I had a great time. at that, and I submitted for both B-Sides and DEF CON, and I got my speaker badge to B-Sides. Okay? I got to speak at the Wall of Sheep in their cool room. And then something happened at DEF CON, and I thought this was fun because this is our own jurist taking a picture. Something happened at DEF CON, and while I was at DEF CON, I had another injury, and so I had to go see a doctor. I actually went to the doctor today to have this happen so that this could happen because I had bit almost clean through my tongue while I was at DEF CON. So that's the kind of fun I had. And this is kind of out of focus for a good reason, but I just thought it was interesting. 2 years in a row, 2 major injuries. We'll see what comes of it. But back to the equipment. So the reason I'm here doing my talk is comparing phishing to phishing is for equipment like this. This is some tech from the 80s. Juris probably has this on his boat now, right? Yeah. Or last year's model. You might have last year's model, right? No, it does move slow. In years past, phishing technology moved pretty slow. I mean, right here, this is basically like receipt tape. It would print a graph out on this kind of roll of paper, and that was cutting edge. And that was, I mean, that was a while back. They went to grayscale, and then they went to this cool little 8-bit style graph. Another similarity, we have to look at a lot of graphs for InfoSec, so there you go, graphing. But we go back to Bill Dance. Bill Dance says, hey, kiss traditional sonar goodbye, because we have units like this. This is a big 12-inch unit. It runs sonar, runs autopilot, does a lot of things. It's $4,000. I mean, these are full-blown computers, and they give you imagery like this. You have some amazing detail. This is side find, left side of the boat, right side of the boat. You can also see down below, plus a side find above. And you can detail all the fish down there that are swimming. You can see all the structure, things that have been discarded, or maybe stuff that was there when they flooded the lake or the reservoir. You also have the ability to say, okay, well, this is a lot of noise, why don't I clean it up? And over on the right side there, you can say, oh, this is my anchor line. These are the grass that are growing down there. You can see here, there's an open field, you know, kind of a flat area, we'd call it. You're out on a flat, but there's like, what is that weird rock? Dude, that's not a rock. Where's my car? There's your car right there. So, this is a true story. This is so true that in March, a guy from my bass club found this car when he was coming in from fishing one day. And that's pretty amazing clarity, if you ask me, because that's the car right there that they drug out after he notified the authorities. So, by him having this kind of technology on his boat, he was able to close a cold case from 1972. And the family got some closure. These units are also used sometimes to help find people who've drowned. And that's somebody down there. They put a dog cage because they're all metal to help them find it later on when they got to come back if they can't go recover it. But back to what we were talking about. These kind of units require a ton of networking. And believe it or not, there's some, they call them hubs, sonar hubs, and they have some equipment there, and they got a lot of cabling, but they also have Ethernet cabling, and now they have access points. So this is a go-free access point. Up here on the table, there's one. If you want to come up after the talk, I have everything plugged in. They run a special cable, proprietary ends there. It's basically 40 to 55 bucks for a 6-foot cable. And I was wondering, why in the world is it so expensive? It's 5 pins. You can see here, I'm just showing this if anybody wants to play with theirs if they have one. It's only 2 pair, but it's shielded. So that's one reason why it's so expensive. And here's the pin out of it. And I crimped some out, and I made my own little cable, which allowed me to plug it into any device I wanted. Now, for those who may be thinking about, hey, I like to fish, and I have some equipment I'd like to hook up, you can take your favorite TP-Link for 20 bucks. You know, take a loan out on the cable, and then buy one of these from Amazon, and you can power up your own TP-Link and make a wireless access point for your fishing device as well. But let's get back to what we're talking about. So, go free. I said, I'm going to hook it to my computer, and I'm going to run an Nmap on it. And I'm going to see that Telnet and port 80 are open. Oh, that's kind of cool. Port 80? What's on port 80? What do you think the username and password is for this? Yes, admin. I wish it was fish. Wouldn't that be awesome? That'd be so sweet. So admin, hey, we're in. Sweet, look at all that status. I get my SDK version. You can see right here the platform. It's an RT3052 embedded switch. It's got a lot of stuff on board. Here's the operation mode for it. bridge, gateway. They're building these so that you can pull your boat into your driveway, hook it onto your home network, and then basically go out and fiddle with your unit, right? Talk about the features, go through it, maybe upload some things. They have an app store. You know, what could go wrong there with Wi-Fi and things, right? You have your simple settings. So here's the SSID default. You can see the passphrase, very complex, only 8 characters, all upper and numerical. No lowercase and no special characters. But let's say that you didn't make a cable or you couldn't access the unit like that. Here it is right here. Every unit has them printed just below the MAC address there. Password. Okay? I was like, are you kidding me? But you know, I guess they gotta help these guys out. So you could literally socially engineer your way onto a boat, in a guy's garage or on the water, to take his Wi-Fi password, okay? And then once you take his Wi-Fi password, you could maybe go see the pros who are making money at this. And if you steal their Wi-Fi password, you can maybe see where they're fishing, what they're doing. Because that's the curiosity of it. You want to be like, why is that guy there in that area? What's below him? So demo time. I demoed this at Trixie. Some of you are there. I'm not going to go into the details of how to crack the Wi-Fi. I'm just going to go through the screenshots of AeroDump. If you don't know it, get familiar with it. You can watch the presentation last year. But basically, you're going to monitor. You're going to see where it's at. You're going to dump it. And once you get it, you're going to go ahead and crack it. And I got the stats from the Crypto Village at DEF CON, and a password that's only upper letter and numerical can be cracked anywhere, with an Amazon instance, can be cracked anywhere within hours to a few days. Just with a generic video card, we're talking less than 30 days. So the idea that you could go out and do harm to some of these professional fishermen who might have this on their boat is a reality when they're using one of these older units. So we have the password, we're going to get the Lowrance app, right? There's an app that goes on the phone. Anyone who can come up and see this later, once you get it on your phone, you can basically turn your phone into a screen mirror of what's going on the display. Or you can put it on your tablet, and then your tablet can actually control the display. So you don't have to go down to the unit, you don't have to touch it, you can actually just have a tablet there, okay? But what if you had a fishing pole that then had one of these screens, had a Wi-Fi antenna or had access to it, and then you just walked around and you did sonar driving. You drove around on the lake, instead of war driving, you're sonar driving, right? You're driving around to all the fishing holes, trying to figure out who has these units. Maybe you made an evil sonar AP, right? You're gonna have them connect. These are the things I was trying to figure out. So I wanted to see how the unit communicated with the access point. So the sonar unit, I let Nmap do its beauty, and I came up with a screen mirror technology. And GT Screener, or G Streamer, is the program they're using. And I'll show that here in a little bit. But I also decided to run an Nmap scan on the actual sonar unit, because I'm like, well, wait, what's running on the sonar unit? And there's a lot running on the sonar unit. I was very surprised. FTP, port 80, RTSP, that's your streamer, and then NFS and bind, so RPC bind. But I was like, okay, well, let's go over to the port 80. Port 80, that's your Lowrance USR file. Where's Jurist? Yep. What does that mean? The Lowrance USR file.
Is that your favorite fish holes?
Yes. You want to download your user waypoint files. That's what that's short for, the user waypoint files. So what are waypoints? Well, this is a tracking mechanism that BASS, the organization, put in on all their boats for all of their 11, 12 tournaments a year, where you can see where each guy goes on the water. And they got a guy sitting in there with a phone that punches in data, and that phone sends back where they're at, and hey, he got some fish, hey, he's doing that. So you can say, hey, Boyd Duckett's over here in Ketchum Creek. I wonder what Boyd Duckett's doing. Well, take his password, hop in, see what's below, see what kind of structure he's fishing on. Boom, this is a bomb. Why is it a bomb? Because his waypoints are on that machine. So once you have access to his waypoints, it's kind of a big deal. And let me explain why waypoints are a big deal. If waypoints are taken, that's like taking Moxie Muller and Spike's code repo. That's like taking this gentleman's recipe book. Okay? These are the things that are the commodity. It's the kiss of death. And so I want to show you kind of a quick demo of this if we have time. Do we have time? I don't know where Alex is.
Yeah, we just gotta go. Just gotta quick.
Okay, so I'll skip the demo and I'll go through the slides of if my demo failed. So one thing you can do is you can go download the waypoints, and now you have access to where everybody's been fishing on the lake. But what if you wanted to upload a USR file? What if you wanted to mess with people? Okay? What if you wanted to say, hey, every point? Or what if you wanted to send a message? So here, we've uploaded a series of waypoints, and you can see there's one big giant waypoint, and as we zoom in, that's your waypoints that someone accepted, okay? So you can do that, and this is what I demoed live at both of the talks, is how you could basically DDoS someone's sonar unit and send some waypoints. So here's some more features on the device. The device actually communicates via the access point through Telnet and also FTP to be able to exchange stuff. So it also likes to phone home every hour. So there are vulnerabilities. I haven't gone into too much detail in my last talks because I'm working with the manufacturer of these units. I reached out to them, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but I talked to them about how there's some man-in-the-middle issues, there's some spoofing issues going on, maybe some buffer overflows that can happen with some of the technology they're using. Here's the streamer again, and the fact that you have everything you need here to possibly exploit the streamer. This is the Telnet information. So I don't know if you can see this, but over on the right there, it's basically issuing all these commands and getting answers, and if you go down to almost the very bottom on the right, you'll see that it gives out the WPA, PSK, and it gives you the password right there. So even if you can't get to that unit, if you can just figure out how to plug into the back of the unit, you're good to go. I also ran file on the kernel.bin for the updater and found out that this is running Linux. And what version? It's also an ARM processor. It's using BusyBox heavily. And so I got some information on BusyBox, and then I decided, okay, what version of BusyBox is it? 1.20.2. And then I found a lot of other things that made me think this is probably Slackware. All these packages are on there. And so I thought about, that has to do with some licensing probably. And I asked the manufacturer the last time we communicated, just before I went to B-Sides and DEF CON, I said, hey, can you tell me two things? Can you tell me what you're doing about the GPL licensing on the devices? And can you tell me, in the act of phoning home, do you send any anonymous statistical data of like where the unit's been, what's going on, other features? And I got crickets. In fact, I haven't heard back from them since. So I was communicating with two different people, one over the wireless access point, Go Free stuff, and one over the actual Lowrance unit. They've been really cool up until then, but I haven't heard anything since. So I don't know if I touched a nerve, or if the lawyers got involved, or what. Maybe they're just waiting to see the recording of one of the talks, but here's some more data. This is the shadow file that's issued to all the devices, and you can see the root and the one on the bottom, NOS. Those are the user accounts. We decided to see if we can crack those. I was like, well, why not? It didn't really take very long. That was under a second right there to get the passwords, and the passwords are NOS. So we kind of let them know all that information. Here's a screenshot of the information that you can actually turn off on these units and say, hey, I don't want this to phone home every hour, because it does phone home to about 3 or 4 different websites for the manufacturer. The problem I have with the units is that Wi-Fi is on by default. I will tell you good things that have happened with the new generation that came out this year. They've made the passwords more complex, so they've added lower, so they're not quite as easy to crack, but you can get to that password if you have access to the unit in 5 touches of the screen. It's just boom, 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 and there you go, you have everything you need. So there's a lot of issues. So I'm trying to work with the manufacturer. There's a few more things that I could talk about, but I'm kind of holding back until we get some more information, and I'm hopefully going to work with them on it. But if you're doing something like this, you want to make sure that you work with them, that you're contacting them, and disclose vulnerability, right? Do it responsibly. So some of you might be in the crowd saying, phishing is so stupid. How in the world did this guy ever get accepted to talk at one of these places? Or I'm dying right now. But It's nothing to do with phishing, really. I mean, this is just a piece of hardware that is amazingly technical and more powerful every year. Next year they're going to do 3D, no, later this year they're actually going to do 3D rendering of everything underneath your boat. And you'll be able to completely look in a 3D model of what you've gone over and recorded, okay? Very powerful. But even more importantly, these units, especially the more powerful ones, they have basically 3 companies within the same company, and Simrad are the ones that they put on ships and other major boats. And if you look below, there's something that concerns me. Autopilot. Now on my small units, autopilot is disabled by default. But autopilot is on a lot of the ships or boats like this, ships like this. And if you can mess with a unit like this because it has some Wi-Fi enabled, or maybe they're using Wi-Fi just so the captain can look at the display while he's in his cabin at night, you may be able to take a cruise ship like this and end up causing this, right? You can mess with stuff. We know that the military has had some issues with some of their drones because of the quick push to get things automated. Right here, this class of drone was taken offline by the Iranians with basically a DOS. They flooded the communication systems of the wireless communication. The default for this drone was to go ahead and land safely wherever it had access. So they just waited it out and the thing landed right in their own country. We know about the Wi-Fi enabled vehicles. Chevy has theirs. You have Aeronet, which you can add to just about any other vehicle. This made news for the last 2 weeks because it was talked about last week at Black Hat and DEF CON. We have Wi-Fi on planes, and we got guys like this that are in big trouble because they worked on this and talked about it, and you know, they might have, we're waiting to find out, but they might have actually did it while the plane was running. But I don't know, I don't think so, but it is true that you can have something similar on planes like this, a smaller class, you know, maybe these more private jets, or even a Cessna. Garmin has tech like this, where you can take your iPad and you can go ahead and chart out everything you want to do, and you can modify how your plane flies with a tablet. The Internet of Things deals with this insulin pump. This is a guy who actually got sued by the company that manufactured the insulin pump because he was doing it and notified everyone of how dangerous it was, how insecure it is. Luckily, they backed down once everyone else said, well, you're crazy, he's trying to help people. A lot of your homes might have equipment like this. You may have installed something to help you automate your home, help you with your home automation. This was actually at the house I stayed at in Vegas. And some of you might have a Nest. The Internet of Things is huge. There was a whole village at DEF CON. I think it'll be even more prevalent. They had a refrigerator at the Internet of Things they wanted you to hack on. If I'd had an extra cable, because I was so paranoid for my talk that I didn't want to leave it there because I thought maybe my unit or the cable would walk off because I needed it for my demo, but they had a table at the Internet of Things village, and they had all of these devices that were laying on this table, and you could come in and you could pick the IP address of something and you could just go at it. You could scan that thing, you could try to exploit it, do other things with it. So the idea of this talk was I want you, no, I need you, and we all need you to tinker and to hack. And when I say hack, I mean it in the real sense. Hacking was something that made things better, and it does make things better, because it was people like this that did talks with Ted and did talks last year that talked about how hackers are the internet's immune system. Right now, we're experiencing parts of the world where there's no creativity allowed. A talk like this would actually get me thrown in jail in some parts of the world, and I'm talking first world stuff, not third world stuff. There's countries right now that the kind of meeting we have and the discussions we have, we'd be in big trouble. The idea here is to use your brains, to do some problem solving, back of the squirrel, and we don't just want words, right? We don't just want manufacturers saying things, we want actions. And sometimes we might need to be the ones who do the actions. So I want you to hack the Internet of Things for good, and I want you to accept that challenge, and I'd like to see you do something this fall or even next year. So thank you very much for your time. This is me.
That was great stuff. I actually ran into the guys from the Internet of Things Village in a line at the airport, and they said to me that they had, I think, 28 zero-day vulnerabilities discovered just during DEF CON by the people that wandered into the village and started messing around with stuff. So this stuff is out there, it's a problem. If you've got any of these internet connected things at home, don't assume that the people who are putting them together know what the heck they're doing. Get around and mess around with them. Mess around, you never know what you're gonna find, and Trixie is right around the corner. Before I talk about Trixie for a moment, I wanna give Wayne something. So I know he wanted to submit at DEF CON, and he asked me if I thought it was a good idea, and I was really pulling for him. Every time I'd see a round come out, I was like, man, this talk is great, this talk is great. But I think what happened was that last year we had so many Internet of Things talks that I think they were just like, hey, we got a village, we're gonna put it over there. But this talk was really good. This talk was better than some of the stuff that I saw even in my track with 3,000 people. So I'm not gonna let Wayne get out of here without something to stick to his safety vest the next time that he's in the boat. So here is a DEF CON 23 speaker patch for you. Awesome job, dude.